1 second, I think. So this should be okay.
We can see you.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
All right. So this is what I was saying. So I was saying to the Rotary Club of Kampala once again, it's a deep and abiding pleasure to sort of be here, be with you, and take these next few minutes to share with you on sort of the things that I have learned around reputation and risk management. Who am I? My name is Collin Asiimwe, not Collins, for those of you who might know that or haven't known. I currently am employed at Multichoice Uganda as the head of marketing, where we lead work and development work for 4 brands. So DSTV, GoTV, Showmax, and Pearl Magic. So those are the 4 brands that we work with. But in my other life, having done work, I have got a decade of experience under my belt doing strategic communications. I've got a 15-year experience doing communications in total, and a very intense 3 years doing crisis management and reputational management work in this market and across the region. But I wanted to begin by telling a little story. No, maybe not a little story, but to sort of begin as of today, I wanted to sort of begin by defining what we're discussing today. And we're going to try and, I'll try and sort of keep it light so then, and it's relatable and it's easy for us to sort of know the things that will affect us. 1, if you think about the topic today, which is reputation and risk management, there are 3 things in there that are important for us to define. 1, what is a reputation? And from my understanding and how it's defined is your reputation is a belief or opinions that are generally held about someone or something. Yes? Now, if you think about that, and we normally use this expression a lot where we say, your reputation precedes you. We use it in banter, we use it casually, but very few people realize how powerful that statement is. It is beliefs or opinions that are generally held about something. It is out of things like reputations that things like stereotypes are built. So, i.e., people from certain parts of the world are hardworking. So when you say, who are hardworking people? Oh, those are Japanese, or those are Chinese. Who are people who enjoy eating pati? Ah, those are Ugandans. You know, so when the things that we do consistently become our reputations. And those are the things that then inform how the world sees us. Please note that the reputation that you have is quite often divorced from the character that you are. And therefore, which is why this entire business and industry exists to close the gap between your reputation and the reality of your character. And this is for you as an individual, and this is for you as a business or a brand, whatever you work with. The second bit of information I wanted to define was the risk element. And the risk is defined as a situation involving exposure or danger. And what that means for you and your business, normally, it's a place where you could come into harm, or you could get private information exposed. But what does that mean as a business? Where does that leave you? And I think that in sort of defining and structuring those kinds of conversations, you start to see where your focal point is. And our conversation listening starts to take shape. So reputational risk and management, therefore, is about managing the opinions that people have about you or your brand that could lead to exposure or danger. If we are okay with that as a starting footing, people will ask you, but why is it important? Why is reputational risk management important? And then you start to see, what do we know? What have we seen? We know that brands that have great reputations, 1, have more value. They are more valuable to the communities where they operate. They're valued higher by the people who work for them. They are able to command higher prices in the markets where they work. That allows them to charge a premium. Charging a premium means that you're able to charge more money. Why do you charge more money? Because you have more loyal customers. Brands with great reputations have loyal customers. If you ask, and I don't know if this is necessarily true for all of you, but years ago we did a study when we were doing some work for FMCG brands, and 90% of all mothers, women who had children, believed that the best milk for their children and their family was Jessa. They believed that Jessa was an expression of a love language for their children. That was the best way they could take care of their family. They bought Jessa or there was no milk in the home. It doesn't necessarily, it might be true that Jessa is technically the best milk brand in the market. But you can see that if the brand has only 60% market share in terms of distribution, but has a 90% uptick and recommendation by mothers, you can see that the gap between the recommendation and the reputation and the reality of the brand is quite large. And then you start to see that that's what it does. People will look for the brand or there will be no milk in the house. So the second thing about why you should take care about your reputation is because you have more loyal customers. And those loyal customers allow you to even broaden your field of services. So you start out as just doing milk, but eventually you move into yogurt, you move into soft yogurt, you move into cheeses, because people believe the power of the brand that you've built allows you to go into broader services, because that reputation you have from that original product continues to drive and thrust you further into people's pockets, because they say, if it can have this, if I can believe the milk brand, then I can believe the yogurt brand. And you sort of see because in people's minds, that correlation, it's a very small leap to make if there is trust and if there is loyalty. The third thing I want to talk about is brands that have great reputations attract the best talent. Now, some of you who are in employment or who run your own businesses or who have hired people or who have worked for people know that finding talent it's like playing pinky ponky. Sometimes you get a great talent, you find people, they have all the paperwork, they've done all the degrees and everything, but then they don't have a great work attitude. And the people you want to hire have a great work attitude, but they may not necessarily have the right paperwork. I think, and it's been proven, that brands with great reputations make sure that they attract the right talent. And I'll tell you an example about this. Years ago, we used to, this is in the 90s, and people would say, when corporate guys, I don't know if some of you guys remember this, when guys who worked in banks and guys who worked at MTN would leave the offices with their little name tags, this little thing you see around my neck. I'm not wearing it for prestige. I'm wearing it because it gives me access to office doors and whatnot. But if you're not in the organization, you don't know why. But I remember my first time when I saw a guy who worked at MTN. He had a bright yellow, name tag, and it was so shiny, it was so clean. And I remember thinking, wow, one day I want to work for MTN. And you have to sort of see it like that. Reputations are about aspiring and inspiring talent to come and work for you and give you their best. And great talent means great business. And finally, the other reason why these companies that have great reputations charge a premium is because the things around a great reputation allow those businesses and those people to grow. And I mean this as a business or as an individual. If you have a great reputation, people are willing to lend you a hand. They're willing to pitch in for you. They're willing to take their time and their money and their resources and their networks and make those resources available to you, because they know, one, you will not waste it. Two, you're dependable. Three, when you say something, you're committed to it, you'll follow through. And four, because you're a person who shows gratitude. So we've defined why it's important. What are the benefits of having a great reputation, or why you should manage your reputation? But I wanted to quickly take you through three things that sort of that put your reputation at risk. And that's interesting for us because we've seen all the nice things, we've seen all the goodies. Why is it good? What do you benefit? But what are the things that put you at risk? And I think this is the heart of this presentation. I wanted to speak into three things. The first one is the reputation reality gap. The second one is what you call emerging times. And the third one is sort of how your customer-facing coordination works. So if we go into the first one, your reputation reality gap is, if you run an organization as a person, so most of us exist in a reality where we're different people to different people. What do I mean? The Tom you are to your family is different from the Tom you are in your office WhatsApp group, and that's different from the Tom you are at the Rotary meeting, and that's different from the Tom you are to your girlfriend if you're not married, or the Tom you are to your spouse. Very few people manage to sort of merge those personalities and those facets and those personas into one, and it takes deliberate effort. Why? Because for your family, you're trying to be the child that they've always known you to be. For your spouse, you're trying to be an independent, strong, reliable person. For your workplace, you're trying to be someone else. Maybe you're just a guy who's hungry and ambitious and trying to grow. And then for your Rotary Club, you're the guy who's there for the prestige, and you say the fellowship, and you contribute as much as possible. But you start to see that across those different interests, there is a fissure that starts to emerge. And why is this important? If you're a company, for example, it is not good. It may seem like a very brilliant idea to have a reputation that far exceeds the character of your brand, but in reality, it isn't. Why? Because if people believe, and I'll give you an example, and this hasn't happened yet, but if you sort of take a look at Elon Musk's SpaceX or Tesla, people believe that Tesla can end the use of fossil fuels. Elon Musk is a South African, is an American scientist, tech innovator, but of South African origin, who has built ships through his SpaceX program and has taken ships to space, and has also behind the Tesla motor company business, sort of looking to redefine the entire landscape around motor vehicles and e-vehicles, electronic motoring. And people like that, what they've done is they've built this expectation, and people know that Elon Musk will absolutely finish fossil fuels. He'll finish cars driven by petrol or diesel in the next couple of years. The reality, however, is that the capacity for the world to take new cars means that they just simply cannot satisfy that market. But the reputation is so big, the ambition and the appetite is so big that people will hold on and they believe in the stock market and continue to grow and support this business until that business fails to meet that expectation. I'm going to give you a slightly more local example. 38 years ago, 34 years ago, someone came to our country and said, this is not just a change of guard, it is a fundamental change. And for 10 years, Uganda was the golden child of the development community. We were reversing illiteracy. We were the first country to put a female vice president. We were making strides in structural adjustment programs and privatization. We were growing by leaps and bounds, and we reversed HIV for a while. And you can see what that does. A great reputation means everyone wants to give you money. Everyone wants to put resources behind you. However, when you look back over the last couple of years, if you sort of check across the last decade, a lot of that support has waned. and largely faded, because you start to see that the reality of the system to meet that reputation is a problem and remains a challenge. And so people then, it creates unnecessary pressure on the brand, the person or the brand, to sort of meet that reality. So I wanted to sort of close that to say, a lot of people say, you know what, I would rather lead with my reputation because a good reputation leads to growth. But that's when we are small. But when you think about it and you take a long view to it, you'd rather lead with character and let the reputation be the shadow behind your brand. And that's you as a person, that's you as a business, that's you as a legacy defining person. Why? Because the reputation isn't the reality. It is simply beliefs, opinions that people hold about you, and they are important, but they are not who you are. They are not your substance. And so that's our first sort of reputational risk and determinant, and how to solve that. One, in a place where your reputational reality gap is high, we seek to close it, and we must always remember to emphasize to lead with character and then follow up with reputation. Our second pointer on this is, imagine a time like now in which we are, and you've been following the things that have been happening around the world. The incident of Black Lives Matter, or so what's happening is brands have been facing a lot of backlash for not being able to evolve in changing times. Many times, reputations are built on reliability. People have known for 100 years that certain brands do certain things. This is how the business operates, doesn't change. But times are changing, and therefore our stakeholders are changing. When we were young, we expected, and this is a bit of a sensitive example, when we were growing up, we expected that, that girls would kneel or our wives would kneel for us. We have grown up into a world where kneeling is no longer a done practice. But if you then are stuck in the reliability and the image of what people should do for you, you find yourself in 2020, and my friend, people's knees don't bend. And then you are faced with what we were talking before, an expectation reality gap. Yes? So what happens for a brand that is not evolving, that is in changing times but finds itself stuck? What happens is there are new and changing expectations. People expect you to do certain things. We were in the middle of COVID. Imagine if you're the one brand that has not given a single shilling, because as our CSR policy says, we don't give cash. But we are in a never before place. People are suffering. Your employees, you're laying off people. But we are in COVID. How does a brand react to those kinds of things? How do we change? How do we evolve? How do we remain agile in those kinds of things? And those new realities. I want to tell you about a really interesting story that happened to a brand called Gillette. And Gillette is a brand that some of you know because they do shavers. They're the world's #1 shaver developer brand. 2 years ago, they ran a campaign talking about the best a man can be. And what they were doing is they were seated right in the heart of the cultural movement around toxic masculinity. They did one commercial. The commercial went viral. And in 3 months, they eroded $8 billion off of their revenue line. Because even though the ad was in culture, it was speaking to the time and space in which the brand was, and an issue that was current, which is toxic masculinity. The core brand consumer felt, the largest brand stakeholder felt that it wasn't in good taste and it wasn't reflective of the ambitions of where they were going. And that reality between where the brand was, which had always been sensitive and in culture, and the changing times in which the brand found itself, created that clash, and that made the brand's reputation suffer. What do we learn from this? the lesson is brands and people must always be willing to learn. And how do we know this? How do we know this to be true? Some of you have conversations. I know that some of you taught your parents how to use WhatsApp. You teach them how to use selfies. You're the one who teach your mothers how to send, your mothers and your aunties, you're the ones who teach them how to forward all those memes and all those prayers. That they didn't teach themselves those things. You're the ones who teach them how to forward those things. A lot of this technology is taught. And even though it's from a different generations from them, they learned how to do voice notes. So my mom will send me occasionally, 5-6 minutes of voice notes and say, hey, so anyway, I was talking about, I'm like, but mommy type. She's like, no, let me just talk to you. I'm like, let me call you. She says, no, I'll just, so you sort of see that willingness to learn allows us as individuals and us as brands to remain current, to remain fresh in a world where times are always changing. I wanted to sort of come full circle and now talk about the customer-facing angle of this. The things that are customer-facing with a brand and code are sort of sometimes in the business, and I'll tell you this is from the business in which I work, where we work with TV subscription. Marketing comes out and says, guys, we're giving all subscribers a discount. But the marketing guys got the information from the MD. Then the customer guys, after you've paid your subscription, the customer care guy says, no, we have no upgrade. Sir, you've paid for access, this is what we're giving you. And then obviously the customer is so angry because he saw the advert which said to him, if you pay now, you get the upgrade. The customer care person is telling him there's no upgrade. All it would have taken was a small conversation to align on messaging. Many times we experience this. You see it with the telecoms, you see it with utilities, you see it with, and I feel like a lot of people feel it with umeme as well, because you've just paid for the tokens. But then now, the other umeme part says, guys of Nigeria, guys of Nansana, there is no power. The guys of Mulago, you guys are doing badly. And that's the reality. A lot of brands suffer from this fracturedness. But even as individuals, in teams, where guys say, this is what Collin said, we're going by it. And then someone says, no, but this is what he said in this other meeting. And I think that in a situation like this, we should always endeavor to be consistent, to have a single message. But what does that non-alignment cost us? It costs us our customers' loyalty. It costs us great customer reviews. It costs us referrals. Those things are tangible because you can cost them. You can actually say, if Daniel does not refer me to his friend, that is money lost. That's one person who could have come to my business who isn't coming. That's why those kinds of things are important. And how are we solving this? We're saying that the answer is through internal alignment, creating a single customer-facing face that allows us to be consistent and to be aligned. And having spoken about those 3 points, I wanted to say, how do you then solve for X in a world where the risks are everywhere? Sometimes you misspeak in a conference like this, or you type something risky on Twitter, or someone says something and you react in a moment of anger and you abuse them online and someone screenshots that, and for years you cannot escape it. 10 years ago, Kevin Hart, the comedian, said something about gay people on his Twitter. A year ago, he had to step down because he could not host the Oscars because the gay community still remembered the things he had said and he had done. So certain things, and especially in the age of the internet, these things will continue to live forever, they'll continue to haunt us. So how do we solve for X, where X equals our reputations as individuals and as businesses? And I wanted to sort of drop 5 quick points that we can remember. 1, reputations are built across sustained visibility. Why is that? If people can't see you, they have no opinions about you. If people can't see you, they have no beliefs about your brand. And you don't build reputations by hiding away from the public and hiding away and not speaking and, being in a dark room. Put on the light, bring forward your character, Let's build your reputation. That's one. Sustained visibility. Two, the other thing is about neutrality, balance. Reputations are about balance. It's not all about all the good things. Why do we know this? Because we know that people mistrust people who or brands where they only hear good things. If people only hear good things, that's a problem for you, my friend. Fix it. Why? Because people then know that it is spin, it is doctored. In actual practice and in balance in the industry where we work in communications, we advise a general balance of 30% positive stories and not more than 10% negative stories. And the rest of it must be neutral. Why? Because what that does is it ensures that there's always a healthy balance in people's minds. It appears in people's minds to be balanced and therefore credible. And that's what you're always striving for. The third point I want to talk about is breadth. People think that when you're building reputations, you must always talk about the things where you are strong. So-and-so is a hard worker. But that's not always true. Such and such a business is so driven, or it's such a good business to invest in. But there are other things about the business. Businesses are about the people who work for them. They're about the profits that they make. They're about the technology they use. They're about the communities where they work. If you're talking about your reputation as a person, what things do you believe? You're not only about the work you do. You're also about the things you believe. You're about the people you surround yourself with. You're about the work that you volunteer for. They're about the organizations where you've been, your journey, your physical health. And that rounded appearance and brand building approach continues to shape a much larger view. Even though a lot of those things will be neutral and ignored, the neutrality tends to balance off if something negative were to emerge about you, because the knowledge people have about you and your brand is expansive and wholesome. The fourth thing is speed and agility. In a time of crisis, and this is the biggest problem a lot of people do, is they want to manage the crisis. Most companies and brands, they want to manage an already emerged threat instead of doing reputational management. People would rather say, you know what, we won't deal with that until the fire happens. But the danger with dealing with an already emerged threat is that you lose the opportunity, you lose the chance to be authentic, and you lose the chance to have proactively managed this, to control the outcome. So our point 4 is 1, speed and agility. Always be fast to market. How you execute, how you manage things. If you foresee something, have the ability to assess and move swiftly to arrest these things. In crisis communications, we called it the rule of the golden hour. When a crisis is emerging, you must have new movements and new developments every hour. And some of you say, you know, those are corporate things. I want to tell you an example that I want to tell you for a fact, and maybe some of you may not know this, but if your nudes ever leak, when your nudes leak, you manage them by the hour. Because by the hour, they are burning like a forest fire. They are hitting different groups. And you can tell because that's how, as the nudes hit different groups, that's the number of people who are calling you and texting you. It's when you determine who's your friend, who's going to forward, who's not going to forward, who's going to call you and text you, by the way, I've heard about this. And you can tell it has come full circle when your parents finally say, first call us, let us first talk to you. Where are you? Come home and we discuss. That's sort of the focus. That's how you start to see. And think about it, if it were happen to you as an individual, but also happen to you as an entrepreneur, as a small business. But even if it happens to you as a large business, because these things have happened to BP, they've happened to Shell. In 2017, we were having a perfectly ordinary day. I was in Uganda. We got an office that our group office, the MTN client in Nigeria had been hit with a $5.2 billion fine. It was a really difficult next 48 hours. But that's how it is. You manage it by the hour. You call in the consultants, you call who you need to call, and then you fix it. But those kind of things will happen to you. You will hit great and immense personal loss. Sometimes the loss is to you. You have lost a loved one, a parent, a child, a friend, and those things will hit you. The key is to move swiftly and always stay in motion. Finally, the final point I want to talk about this is creating a central focus, what we call one face, one voice, one message. A lot of times when businesses and brands are in some sort of peril, they tend to allow, well, the Dan practices. So a patriarch at a family dies, and every child wants to speak to the press, and every child wants to give the opinion of things. That's not really how great reputations are maintained. Once you assess and you know that there is reputational risk, it is important to centralize, find a single point of focus, a person who the media will talk to, a person who all agreed organizational information will come through. But even for families, who is the person who will speak for the family, who will take everyone's considerations, and who will speak authoritatively? Those kinds of things seem small. But even for you as an individual, you have to know that if my life ever hit crisis, and this is all part of planning, you have to be able to know how would you respond. These are the things we shall discuss. These are the things that are off topic, no matter what it is, the things about your life that you should never be willing to discuss. So in closing and in wrapping up, why do we manage risks and why do we manage our reputations? One, because reputations allow us to charge a premium. They allow us to charge a premium because they bring us more value, they bring us more customers, they allow us to attract more talent, and they facilitate great growth. What are the things that determine reputational risk? We've talked about one, the reputational reality gap. Two, we've talked about emerging times and changing landscapes. Three, we've talked about how customer-facing traditions can affect brands. And finally, we've said that how do we solve for reputations? How do we solve for X, where X equals reputations? We've said that one, we go through sustained visibility. Two, we balance our reputation and how it goes out. Three, we must always go for breadth and not depth. Four, speed and agility. And five, a centralized focus on the brand. With that, I would like to say thank you very much. And I hope that as you build your brands, you will build them with great courage, strong integrity, and an forward-facing brand focus. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
Wow, wow, wow. Collin, you've given us an excellent presentation. Very insightful and very educative indeed, especially now when we are in the August, the month of membership and club extension. I'm sure most of us have picked a lot. And for Rotarians, how are you marketing your brand? I leave that question to you. And at this juncture, I call upon Norbert and Rotarian Jennifer Subi to take us through the Q&A. Over to you, Norbert and Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes,
Thank you, Collin.
Thank you, Collin.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Collin, for that informative presentation. In the chat room, we have about I see about two or one question. Another one is a comment. One question from Matilda Apio. She's asking that, how do I ensure visibility in order to build a reputation brand? That one is from Matilda. Then from Bob Okodi is saying that, hello, Collin. Do you have all this information in a presentation and later? He will appreciate. And there is another one from the same person, Bob Okidi. Is there a body that brings together PR professionals such as yourself, Collin? It would be good to know where one can run to when faced with a crisis that needs a profession. I think that is, and there is another comment from Daniel Bogo. A great presentation, Collin. Proud of you.
And Nakulu Nakitende from Asiimwe has a hand up. So maybe she can
No,
also add.
excuse me. Can we first have the first question, few questions, then we can add more. Because if he gets too many, it might confuse him. Collin, can you please take the first 3 questions, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So first of all, these are really, really interesting conversation. So a lot of people think that sustained visibility is about. Oh, I forgot. I needed to put on the video because, as we've requested. So sustained visibility is really about. It's not about big spends. So people think, okay, but if I'm running a small business, how do I do sustained visibility? It's a mix, and I can tell you this, it has never been easier in the history of mankind to get visibility, to get noticed. Because when you think about a small business, if you're a small business, you should have a website, you should have a Facebook page, you should have a Twitter account, you should have an Instagram page. You should allow yourself and say, once a quarter, I will do some partnership work and collaboration with other people so I can get noticed. I will do some work in the community in which I'm involved. So I just realized, it just hit me now. If I were to give an example of sort of the Rotary brand in Uganda, there are very big tentpole events that sit on the calendar, the Rotary Council run. However, there are small micro events like, community interventions, outreach projects. Those things all serve to give Rotary sustained visibility across the year. So there are things that you do every day. I'm sorry. There are things that you do every day, but then there are things that we splash out on, our big tentpole events. And I think that the proven strategy is to have 2 key pillar events and then have smaller events that sort of build and work in service of the larger goal. The second question that you asked me is there a body? Yes, there is a body. The body is called the Public Relations Association of Uganda. They take members every year. I actually think they'll be taking members. The membership fee is 50,000 shillings a year. And these are seasoned professionals. You can go to them for help. They represent the cream of the industry's best performers. But I do also need to tell you that a large part of what we've done and what we've built is around experience. A lot of this is, sometimes if someone tells you the porridge is hot, until you drink hot porridge, I promise you will never know. People will just be telling you, oh, would you water? But you must sometimes drink the porridge for yourself. And then finally, the third question is there a copy of this presentation? No, unfortunately, I do not have a copy of the presentation because my understanding was that it was an interactive conversation. So I sort of just prepared speaking notes, which are not sort of structured in a presentation. But I've noticed that someone was recording this talk, and they will make the recording of the talk available to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Collin.
Thank you, Collin. I see Madame Nulu's hand is up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, President Sarah. Thank you, Collin. Collin, now you talked about Rotary. In Rotary, we have leaders, we have heads of organizations, heads of families. And oftentimes you find everyone has their own opinions and beliefs about how you should be branding, either your family or your organization. And you'll find that the leaders, they think what they believe in is what should be adopted as a brand. And yet at times, the juniors have maybe a better idea, but it is a challenge convincing the leaders because of their inflated egos and so on. What do you have to say about that? Thank you.
Over to you, Collin.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. It's a really interesting question. I wanted to, can you, great. I think my video was frozen. I wanted to quickly speak into, this is going to touch some nerves, but I ask permission to be candid, Madam Chair. Do I have permission to speak honestly?
Yes, you have. Please go ahead.
And the reason why I seek this permission is because sometimes these words are revolutionary. When we do not commit the tree of liberty and freedom must regularly be refreshed with the blood of martyrs and heroes. This is a very old saying, but it says this, it says that if we do not commit to regularly refresh our culture becomes stagnant, it becomes tyrannical, and it becomes archaic. It is true, because at the start of Rome, the people who, when you read about the culture at the start of Rome, when Rome expanded out to go and civilize the unknown world, and they knocked on the escarpment of Mount Himalayas, and they knocked all the way to Western Europe, and they civilized and conquered the known world. Their ambition was to bring uniformity and bring harmony to a world. They built roads, they brought technology, they brought civilized warfare. But when it became too large, when the Roman Empire became too large, it was not able to change. And that lack of change caused it to stagnate, and it made the empire obese and fat and unable to move, and therefore it died and crumbled. But if you think that's not true, then you have to look to 2,000 years before then, when Genghis Khan expanded from the east in China and came right into Constantinople and knocked on the door of Western Europe. It's the same story. When the empire grows too large, it cannot be governed. When the culture grows too old and is not refreshed, it cannot sustain, because it doesn't live within the time of the people and inhabitants of the people who live in it. This is true of the Buganda kingdom itself, the old Buganda kingdom that touched into the Congo basin and in the south went all the way to Karagwe at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was the largest interlacustrine region, respected and revered. Yes, it had antagonists in the Bunyoro Empire, but Buganda was unmatched and completely dominant. But when the culture fails to constantly refresh itself, I think that it always faces threats from within in terms of young, vibrant energy looking for change, and from without, enemies who sort of see that long period of peace and dominance as a threat that they must destabilize. Now, having given that background, allow me to answer your question. I think that especially in families, it is important to define what the journey is, what the vision is. And in defining that, the vision cannot be, anyway, there's some NRM supporters, I don't want to. The vision cannot be held by one person. The vision is a shared vision between the people who integrate it and the people who initially have the vision and the people who are charged with carrying it forward. It is a relay. And therefore, in the process of the handover, there must be a willingness to compromise, to find a middle ground between what the young people who are charged with carrying the vision forward have and what the original vision bearer had in mind. You find in conversations like this, you find things like core principles, non-negotiables. There are things that we cannot change, but there are other things that we must change if the vision must remain to live on. And so in answering your question, I think that there cannot be that legacy building if there is no flexibility, if there is no compromise. I hope that answers the question that you've asked.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
There is another question. One
Just before we take
question, Madam President.
excuse me, Rotarian Jennifer, before we take any more questions, can I borrow 10 more minutes from Sergeant so that we can conclude? Because the time is not on our side. Sergeant, can I borrow 10 minutes, please?
Yes, yes, President, you can.
Thank you. Let us take one more question.
Thank you, Madam President. There is a question from Naomi Mwez. She says that thanks, Collin, for the excellent presentation. In most cases, people would like to build a strong reputation, but not willing or able to manage the risk. How can the balance be achieved? I submit, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for this question. It is indeed an excellent and exciting question. I struggle with this because if you're under 25 or 30, you probably have had people saying to you, but people of this young generation, they don't know how to work. They don't know how to forbear. They don't know resilience. That's sort of the reputation that young millennials have had amongst the older working class. But when you think about, there are two realities here, and I want to bring both of them to you. Strong reputations are the things and beliefs people have about you. If you have a strong reputation, this is what it means. I'm sorry, I think my video is frozen and I wanted to sort of clear it. One, that someone will say, you know what, if Tom says he will be here by 10, he'll be here by 10. If Tom says he'll send the money, he'll send the money. If he says he didn't do it, I would rather put my hand and you cut my hand. Why? Because that's a strong reputation. People believe and have opinions about you that are so strong, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for that. That is something that is built over time. It is not something that you can take for granted, but it is also something that requires a very immense amount of sacrifices. It requires for you to be willing to sacrifice all the non-essential stuff for that to happen. So there are people who you find who say, family first, and no job, no opportunity, nothing that is outside family can ever force them to put family second. That's something that they've built, and they've had to sacrifice all those other things outside that sphere, sort of build that. Which then brings me to that second question you've asked. The second part of that question is, but not willing to manage the risk. I think that when you think about the lives we live very fleeting lives. On average, you live 70, 80, maybe 90 years, but productive life, 70 years. But 70 years is very small in the span of the world and time and how things have existed. And we struggle very, very much with relevance and what's my purpose? Why am I doing here? Will this matter? I think that when you ask that question about, I am not willing to manage the risk, then you shouldn't be doing what you want to do. Because the things that you want to do are worth the sacrifice. They're worth the time. They're worth every price you pay. Because if you are not the hardest worker in the room, you're not making the choice to be phenomenal. And I must say to you, you must either choose to be phenomenal or be forgotten. There is no choice. There is no mediocrity. There isn't a place for that if you're legacy building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Collin, and I'm sure all of us who have attended this fellowship agree that Collin has given us a great presentation, and he has reminded us that a good reputation leads to growth, but also cautioned us that we should lead with character and then follow with reputation. At this juncture, can we unmute our microphones and give a big clap to Collin as PhD Daniel comes in to pass a vote of thanks.
Hooray.
Thank you so much, Collin, and I'm sure we will be inviting you again. PhD, please come in to pass a vote of thanks.
Thank you, President Sarah. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Kampala Wandegeya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud
yes,
and clear.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Kampala Wandegeya, I would like to appreciate my brother Collin Asiimwe for sparing time to come and fellowship with us. Collin is a friend we've moved with a very long time, right from school through campus, and he's gone through the ladders to become the head of marketing for DSTV. I know Collin as a very passionate gentleman, passionate about branding, passionate about reformation in institution systems, and he wouldn't have been there wouldn't have been any other better person to speak about risk as well as reputation than him. But the things he speaks about are also things that he himself believes in, someone I've seen for a very long time. So when he speaks about integrity in branding, he actually means it. When he speaks about being positive, going for reputations that are sustainable, I know he means it. So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Kampala Wandegeya, I would like to move a vote of thanks to you, Collin. Thank you for sparing time. I mean, the schedules, and we've had a laughter about time and how you have to run here and there in the days of our today operations. But amidst all that, there's still quite a lot that you have to do. So I'd like to thank you, Collin, for sparing time to come and fellowship with us and for giving a powerful presentation. So on behalf of the club, we move our vote of thanks, send greetings to your team. Would like to do more and more partnerships with your entity because we're into service projects, we're into communities, and a lot of need for synergy. But above all, I would like to invite you to Rotary, any club that would be convenient for you so that you can move in to give a helping hand to those that are less fortunate in support of humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, PhD Daniel. Collin, you've heard, and we welcome you at Kampala Wandegeya. So feel free to join us when you are ready. And I take this opportunity to thank once again all of you who have been with us. Everybody in his or her own capacity. I've seen a number of my fellow OPs in attendance. OP Susan Namasuba, OP Geoffrey Nansana, OP Dan Nkumba, OP Jonathan Mukono Central, OP Irene RC Chiwenda, OP Margaret Magumba Natete, OP Godfrey Kaya Kampala Alibad, OP Rosette Namisi E-Club Global, and OP Francis Rugogo Global, Rugogo Mango Tree, and OP of RC Chira. It is a great pleasure to have you all with me this evening, and please come again. We shall also make sure that we return your visits. Can I have the sergeant to come in for the roll call of clubs?
Thank you,
Sergeant,
President.
please. Yes.
Thank you, President. I'm happy to present to you the clubs in attendance for today's fellowship. And it goes as follows. Rotary Club of Uganda Global, Rotary Club of Kigo, Rotary Club of Kajansi, Rotary Club of Kila, Rotary Club of Jinja, Rotary Club of Nyenga, Rotary Club of Nansana, Rotary Club of Chambogo, Rotary Club of Nkumba, Rotary Club of Mtinda, Rotary Club of Bugolobi, Rotary Club of Chiwenda, Rotary Club of Kampala, Rotary Club of Kampala South, Rotary Club of Kampala Early Bird, Rotary Club of Kampala Central, Rotary Club of Lugogo Mango Tree, Rotary Club of Nkumba, Rotary Club of Namasuba, Rotary Club of Mukono, Rotary Club of Lakeview, and Rotary Club of Natete. And then there was one United Kingdom, a lady called Agnes, to attend the fellowship.
And the
Agnes,
Provisional
thank you.
Club of Kasanaru were information.
Oh.
Provisional Club of
Yeah, and
Kasanaru were.
then two low tract clubs, the low tract club of Bukoto and low tract club of Lake Victoria. The total number of attendees was 50, and of which 50% has been our members for Kampala Wandegea. I submit, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant, and thank you once again, all our visitors who have joined us. And Agnes from the UK, thank you for accepting and honoring my invitation. You've been visiting us several times. Please keep on visiting us and learn more about Rotary. And our baby RC Kasanaruweru, thank you for joining us this evening. Can we have the final toast by none other than the Charter President of Kampala Wandegea, CP Zaki. Over to you, Rotarian.
Madam President, thank you so very much. Let's fasten our jackets wherever we are for a wonderful fellowship we've had. May we toast to Rotary International.
Rotary
world over. But if for you, you were seated in the chair, you were not straightening your jacket, and you are telling us to straighten our jacket.
You can enjoy.
Please, members, contribute to that. Contribute the happy straw. The number